What's up, ladies and gents? This is KSigKid coming at you with another Destiny video. Today we've got a really important topic that we need to talk about. We're going to talk about nerfing. We're going to talk about why nerfing is bad and why we hate nerfing. And it's not just gamers that hate nerfing. Pretty much everybody, every human alive hates it. We're going to talk about all of this stuff, and the gameplay that you're going to see in the background is actually me using the Hardlight and the Wormwood sidearm. I just happened to want to go into Crucible last night and just run around for fun. This is maybe the third match that I used this pair, and it was actually a pretty solid match. I'm really looking forward to some of the changes as far as auto rifles go, even though I know this particular auto rifle type isn't going to receive a crazy buff. It's going to receive a little bit of a buff, and I'm just excited for it in general. So nerfing though, we've got to talk about this, and it's a huge topic, absolutely huge. If you go over to the Bungie forums, if you go over to Reddit, if you go anywhere on the internet that's talking about Destiny, YouTube videos, Twitch streams, people are talking about this stuff, and there are going to be people that are complaining for sure. So I want to just talk a little bit about my background. I have a background in game design. I worked as a game artist and game designer for several years. Never on any AAA titles, nothing ever remotely close to as big as Destiny. So I'm not going to pretend I know the struggles of game design within the huge studio, but I do have a background in it, so I do understand it, and I do understand a little bit of where people might be coming from. But nerfing, it is not a good thing. It is never a good thing. So whenever Bungie started off their stream yesterday and they started talking about their balance changes, and they said, you know what, we're not going to go about doing this stuff by nerfing everything. We're not going to do that. And then they pretty much proceeded to nerf everything. I had to shake my head a little bit, because I personally feel if I was looking at game design, I would look at it from a different avenue. And again, I'm going to tell you why everybody hates nerfing. Every human alive absolutely hates nerfing. We'll get to that in just a little bit. But for starters, what I would have done if I was going and taking a look at these balance changes is I wouldn't start with the things that are overpowered. I have a feeling, and I personally feel, that Bungie went ahead and took a look at shotguns to start things off. And I think that's just the wrong way to go about looking at things. So we know whenever Deej did a weekly update a little while ago that they were talking about how the Matador was right in their crosshairs because people were using Matador. Again, remember, whenever Bungie shows us our stats, they're showing us what we're using the most in the Crucible. And I know I said the word overpowered before, but overused is not the same as overpowered. I personally do not believe there was one single gun in the game that was overpowered right now. Absolutely not. There are several guns in Destiny's history that have been overpowered. Nothing in the game is overpowered right now. It's just being overused because there are no real better options. But honestly, you're seeing me use the Hardlight right here. If you really wanted to, you could use whatever the heck you actually wanted. That's just the truth. But there's nothing really that's overpowered in the game right now. Nothing in the game that I would personally complain about. And unfortunately though, that's not the way that other people look at things. I understand that, and because of that, Bungie feels the need to go ahead and make some changes. Sometimes changes are good, sometimes changes are bad, but they go about looking at what they need to change by what people are using, and that's not the right way to go about it in my personal opinion. So they can say that they weren't looking to go ahead and nerf shotguns, but look at how many shotgun changes they ended up making. They ended up changing the magnetism, the spread of the shotgun whenever in the air. They changed one of the perks to go ahead and slow down the ADS speed. They ended up taking away critical hit damage. They ended up having to buff it in PvE. They ended up having to do a bunch of different changes to shotguns. And you can't tell me that that wasn't the number one priority whenever they were going about looking at things. Why was the number one priority to go ahead and look at shotguns and see how they can take them down a peg? Why wasn't the number one priority to go take a look at sidearms, or fusion rifles, or sniper rifles, and just go find out ways to entice people to go ahead and utilize those special weapons? But also, Destiny is intrinsically based on movement and verticality and speed. Running around is a huge part of Destiny. So intrinsically, shotguns are just going to be a good option. You don't have this type of movement in other games, and Destiny shouldn't be afraid of that. That's just what they are. That's what they are. Not that you can't use other weapons. You can still use snipers just fine, especially if you're a good sniper. you can still use fusion rifles. I've used fusion rifles a ton. You can use sidearms if you have the patience for them. I'm not a very good sidearm user. I would like to be much better. But you could use anything that you wanted. It's just people happen to like shotguns. They're relatively easy to go ahead and use. They're not easy to be proficient with because for that you need map knowledge and you need movement abilities. There is definitely some trickiness with using a shotgun. But shotguns are just a part of Destiny, and I feel like Bungie's just afraid of that, and instead the number one thing they do is they go and nerf it and nerf it and nerf it. Let's take a look at the Clever Dragon. The Clever Dragon is something that everybody was complaining about. People were complaining about the Clever Dragon for a number of reasons. And what did Bungie end up doing? Well, they nerfed the rate of fire, they went ahead and nerfed the magazine size, they nerfed one of the primary perks to lower the magazine size even further, then they went ahead and they lowered the flinch, then they took away one of the perks that helps to add to the flinch as well. So all they did was nerf the Clever Dragon all over the place. Why would anybody want to go ahead and utilize the Clever Dragon right now after all of those nerfs? In fact, people that use the Clever Dragon or have a Clever Dragon that they love are probably extremely upset and extremely frustrated right now. And it's not because they're just crybabies, and it's not because they use the gun as a crutch or anything. It's because there's a theory called loss aversion. And loss aversion is something that affects all of humans, and it basically says that whenever you lose something, you're more upset about losing something than you are happy about gaining something. So what does this mean exactly? Well, let's pretend we had a coin, and we were doing a little bit of a game where we flipped a coin, and if the coin landed on tails, you had to give me $100. You had to give me $100 every time the coin landed on tails. Now, conversely, whenever it landed on heads, I gave you money. Now, how much money would it take people to go ahead and want to play this game for if it landed on heads? Scientists basically found out that it was a 2-to-1 correlation, so the only way people ended up being happy was if whenever it landed on heads, they would get $200 back. So if it landed on heads, you got $200. If it landed on tails, I got $100. That's where they felt relatively comfortable. So like I said, that $100 loss actually stings more than if they would have gained $100. They had to actually gain $200 to make up for that $100 loss. That's just the way the human brain is. We do not like losses. You need to offset it, and you need to offset it with something good. So whenever we take a look at shotguns here, we just see loss after loss after loss. The one good thing we got was we got our movement speed back, and in PvE we get a great damage boost. The problem is PvE doesn't correlate to PvP. That has absolutely no bearing. So at the end of the day, it's just a net loss, and we're not really feeling too good about ourselves. The thing that ended up working out decently in their favor was hand cannons. Now hand cannons, that's actually something that I feel that was done at least relatively well. Hand cannons are definitely going to be tricky from a range. In fact, they're not going to be usable at all at a range. But what they ended up doing was they gave you something that you really wanted, and that was your first shot to pretty much be perfect. Whenever you aim, you don't have to worry about ghost bullets on your first shot. If you pace your shots, you won't have to worry about ghost bullets. That's something that people desperately wanted. So they were more okay with trading off the range in order to get that accuracy back. That's a better way to go about balancing things, as opposed to just taking away, and saying, you know what, suck it up, deal with it. That's why people are upset. That's why people are frustrated. And then couple this with the fact that, okay, so you spent so much time going ahead and nerfing shotguns, you spent so much time and energy nerfing shotguns, and then you took away all the special ammo anyway. So why even bother wasting all that time and energy to nerf the shotguns when you're just gonna take the special ammo away as it is? It literally is mind-boggling and makes no sense. That's why I said there's just a little bit of a fundamental problem with the game design, the way that the game design is working in Destiny right now. They're too focused on the wrong things. And you're losing a little bit of fun. You can have the most balanced game in the world, but if it's not fun, nobody is going to play it. I would be far less concerned about balance and focus far more on fun. That's my opinion. Based on the time frame of updates, this very well might be the last balance patch that we actually get in Destiny before Destiny 2. So people rightfully had some high expectations because this is what was going to be closing us out. And I think that they've fallen well short right now. Again, we've got to play the game, but you're pretty much marginalizing special weapons now in PvP. You already marginalized heavy weapons. Heavy weapons are pretty much useless and inconsequential. Now special weapons are the same thing. So you've got 3 different classes of weapons to go ahead and play, and you're not going to have heavy weapons aside from once a match. For your special weapons, as soon as you die, just like this, you spawn in with 0 ammo, and then you need to go ahead and chase ammo blocks. So that's not very fun. That's not very fun, and I really do think it's going to promote another campy atmosphere in the Crucible, which is by far the worst atmosphere that there can be in Destiny. It is not fun when people are camping, not at all. That is the least fun part of the Crucible, and I'm afraid that's what we might be going for. Again, we've got to see this in action and test it. It might exceed our expectations, but I think on paper right now, what we know right now on paper, it doesn't sound good. And I don't think that's the right way to go about doing things. I wish what Bungie would do is, I feel like some of the changes they make are based on the fact that they're playing each other and they're playing the same people over and over in their small, confined environment. I would rather see them get out there and let other people experience this stuff and iterate faster, so we could pretty much all get our hands on stuff and say, you know what, this is working really well, or this is not working at all. We need to be the people that are testing things, and if it's not working, we need to say it right away, and then they need to change it right away. I know that's tricky with all the console certifications and everything, but there needs to be a better way than this. This was a long update in the works. They put a lot of work into it. I'm not sure if they were putting work into the right places. They seemed more focused on nerfing things for sure than they did on worrying about balancing things. Again, hand cannons, they look to be decent. The fast rate of fire pulse rifles, all they were was nerfed. That's not the way to go about doing things. That is not. Anyway, guys and gals, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, smack that like button and subscribe to the channel. Check out these awesome videos. Good luck with your raids, your drops, your balance, and I'll see you around in Destiny. #buff please.